Okay, Leo, let's continue our discussion of the debate and e-society. And this panel 3 we have 4 presentations. The subject is Internet and politics. The first presentation will be made by, co-authored by Professor 廖达琪. Everyone knows Dachi. And Professor Lin Jiwen from the Academia Sinica, and Dr. Chen Boyi. Okay, Dr. Chen is doing our doctoral research here at the Institute of 316 University and the
There.
Okay, these are PhD students here.
Thank you, Professor Zhou, and also Deputy Chairperson for the Central Election Committee. Good afternoon. I think everybody here is really very tired. It's a long day. We have 4 panels actually all together, and they start very early. I can tell my discussant, Stu's looking so tired. So I just begin this paper, then I will leave main part of the presentation to Dr. Chen. It's a good opportunity for him to exercise, to practice how to present paper. First, I got to explain why this topic. Yeah, Stu, during the break, already said, oh, you're kind of interested in astrology, I can tell. Yeah, mystical or missing link between sun sign and the propensity to vote. Why I ask this question? Yeah, just like I think most of you still remember this morning, Professor Lin from the Information Technology Department, he said most of the current literature regarding so-called kind of empirical studies sometimes just boring. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Second, most of the empirical study try to prove something really is common sense, right? So I think, how can I avoid the boring and to prove something we already know? This one maybe can fit in this gap, right? Yeah. That's one thing. The other one is actually start from the iVoter platform. We established iVoter website last year, and also we serve as a kind of information providing platform, actually in literature called the Voting Advice Application, VAA. It's a similar thing like iVoter, and Leah is going to present their experience from Estonia. We start this platform, it's a practice. We offer information for all kinds of voters, actually many young voters, and using internet all the time, regarding the legislative candidates kind of issue stance on 21 policy issues. We serving as a kind voting VAA, yeah. But how can we use the data we gather from this website? It's another story. We finish all kind of data collecting. We finish the second wave, the 1 week, second wave, the questionnaire for the iVoter participant, just 1 month before, in the middle of February. So it's within very short period of time, we want to do a paper, fill in some gap in the prior literature, and also at the same time, it's not that boring. So we use this kind of, we try to look for this linkage. And fortunately, we have this kind of thinking quite early. So in the questionnaire, 2-way questionnaire for iVoter participants, we ask their sun sign background. So we got the data. So that's the first one. Now we have 4 authors together. Okay, there are iVoters kind of founding members, including Professor Liu Zhizhen there. The second one. How can I move it? How is that automatic? Okay, and it's actually this kind of interested in sun sign. It's not me. I'm the old generation like here. It's a lot of young generation. They are high school students. We visit Israel. There's a wishing bridge. On this bridge, there are 12 sun signs, and everybody wants to touch your sun sign and make wish, and then your wish come true. My wish come true is I present a paper regarding sun sign and the voting propensity. The next one. There's 2. Next one. Okay. Oh, we have some wise and say something regarding what we didn't know. The first one, Aquinas. Actually, he thought everything come from the sky. We don't know. And the second one, we have a kind of debate argument with my co-author. That here said, superstition is to religion, while astrology is to astronomy. The mad daughter of a wise mother. Let me ask, which one is mother, which one is daughter? Astrology, astronomy. Superstitions or religion? Which one is mother, which one is daughter? Tell me, Schumann, tell me.
Astrology mother.
Astrology. Astrology is mother. It's older, right? Yeah. And the superstition is also older than religion. Good. Mad daughter. So we get rid of mad daughter. We're talking about the wise mother. Okay,
thank you for Chair, Professor Liu, and Dr. Liao, and ladies and gentlemen. I'm really honored to be one of the co-authors who dare to write this kind of topic. And as you can see, the title is "The Mystical or Missing Link." And this was figured out by Dr. Liao, and he said sun signs and the propensity vote. So you can see that we want to examine if sun sign plays any kind of role in the propensity to vote. Actually, about sun sign, in psychology, the field of psychology, actually, a lot of experiments has been conducted about sun sign and personalities. They want to check if there are any relations between the two. So you can see the Mayo et al. They found a significant correlation between, let's say, ASIC. ASIC is a very famous psychologist as a personality inventory and sun signs. And then they found that all 6 odd numbered sun sign groups: Aries, Aquarius, Gemini, and Leo, Libra, and Sagittarius, having extravergent scores higher than average. And all 6 even-numbered sign groups, they are Cancer, Capricorn, Pisces, Scorpio, Taurus, and Virgo, having extravergent scores lower than average. So meanwhile, they also found water signs, the elements of water, like Cancer, Pisces, and also Scorpio. They are water signs that show peaks of high scoring on neuroticism. They are kind of emotional. Okay. And also other findings also point out that the correlations between personality differences and the sun sign. The evidence show that, but I must note here that they are part of the evidence, not all, because some experiments, as they found, there are actually no correlations between the two. So this evidence shows that Capricorn, Sagittarius, Libra, Leo, and Scorpio and Virgo express stronger femininity. So, instead of asking or testing the validity between the two, the sun sign and the personality, some actually think the explanation of this correlation can be contributed to the self-attribution theory. What is the self-attribution theory means? That means actually the respondents are influenced by their prior knowledge of astrology. For example, I'm a Pisces, and I'm told I'm very sympathetic, and if I see the questionnaire about something concerning sympathy, I might remember one of the occasions that I demonstrated this trait. So I said, oh yes, I'm Pisces, I'm very sympathetic. So that's kind of self-attribution theory. Okay. So further research confirmed that people are influenced by the knowledge of other sun signs. So a lot of experiments has been conducted by those researchers. Then we will turn to the political participation. Actually, we focus on the voting behavior here. Okay, their previous research has mainly focused on these 4 dimensions of variables to assess political participation. The first is social demographic characteristics that consists of gender, age, education, and also kind of a resource theory, which means civic skill. But people with civic skill, maybe they are higher, they are more willing to participate in politics. Okay, or money or time. Okay, this resource theory try to test to assessing the patterns of political participation, and also political attitude. Political attitude means that kind of national identity and or your party identification. And the social network here we mean the online, both online and also offline social network. Online social network such as social network sites, FB or Facebook. So we use this as one of the variables in our studies. And offline social network means our family, our neighbors, and our relatives. They may influence our decision to vote. And the last is the kind of personality trait. This is really newly emerging field with regard to the possibility to vote. So some political scientists try to use personality traits to test if there are any kind of connection between our personality and our behavior, political behavior. And so we try to make a connection between personality traits and some sign personality traits with the possibility to vote. That's what we try to do. So let's turn to our research design here. This study actually tries to explore the relationship between sun sign and the most common form of political participation, the propensity to vote. It was seen by a scholar said that this is actually the most common vote. It's actually the most basic form of political participation. And each sun sign here is viewed as representing certain personality traits. So that's why we can connect the previous studies on personality. Okay. The propensity to vote refers to both the vote intention and the voted action. So we are kind of two dependent variables here. This is this is our hypothesis here, connecting the previous studies on personality and the propensity to vote, and we use the kind of the big five traits. This was used by psychologists to measure some behavior. Okay, so there are big five. There are 5 characteristics, which is conscientiousness, agreeableness, and also neuroticism, and extraversion, and the rest is neuroticism. Yeah, this is five traits. So we try to connect these big 5 traits with the personality traits of the sun sign. So actually, this is our hypothesis and of the characteristics of the sun sign, and the propensity to vote is according to previous studies. They say people with conscientiousness, some suggest that they tend to be positive to vote, but some say that they might be negative to vote. So we labeled uncertain, we feel uncertain here because there are debates here. Okay, but agreeableness, all the researchers almost say that it's very high because there are the people with agreeableness, they tend to be very positive in voting behavior. So this is with our hypothesis, we have 12 here. And then we try to test this hypothesis in our model. Okay, before we test the model, we would like to show to you the profile of the iVoter participants. This means who participate in our iVoter website. And we suspect that they are already actually kind of political activists compared with the general public. So here is actually our website here, and you can see this is the questionnaire, online questionnaires concerning with public issues. So this is, should I click it in? Okay. Okay, and both the legislative candidates and our electorates, they can fill in these questionnaires. And actually those legislative candidates already filled in, so you can see if you are one of the electorate, you want to know which candidates actually close to my position, you can fill in all the questionnaires questions, and then the chart will show here, and you can see there's some green dot and some blue dot. Here is representative of different kind of parties here, and the cross here is actually your position. So the chart will show which one is close to you. And so that will facilitate a very prudent vote that we're supposed to. Okay. So we just mentioned iVoter participants. So we want to compare our samples with the general sample, which is random samples was provided by Professor Liu, who is the director of our survey center in our university. And we compare the two groups, the distribution of sun signs, and there is really a significant difference here between the two groups. So we can see in iVoter participants, juvenile is much more than the random samples. And the Sagittarius is much less from much less than the random samples, but we cannot explain why it is so. Okay, that's maybe we can imagine. Okay. Then we compare the two groups by gender, education, and also the age. Gender, we can see that in random sample, the gender is kind of balanced, right? And I would remember male are really much more than the female. And age, because most of the iVoter participants, they are students, so you can see the average age here is about 24, much younger than the random sample, that's of course. And also, education level is much higher. Okay. We also tested, in order to prove that they are actually kind of our political activities. So we also tested their political knowledge and party preference, and show that they are really strong in this field. Because this is a question you can see. I will just skip it until our point. So, if iVoter participants are really political activists, so we just exclude political interests in our model because they're already political activists here. So in our model, independent variables consist of 3 dimensions. The first dimension is, of course, the 12 sun signs. And also second dimension, we also put previous the factors by previous research, such as social democratic factors and also political attitudinal factors, as well as online and offline social work. Online social work, we just take Facebook, participant paid Facebook into our variable. Okay. At the first, we use chi-square to test if there are any relations between sun sign and the vote intention and the turnout. If there is no kind of relation, we should not write this paper. But fortunately, we found that there do have significant correlations here. Here's our result. Okay, quickly. Okay, we find 4 patterns here. 4 patterns here. And if you, okay, and maybe I should write this. It's much clearer here. 4 patterns. First, Capricorn, Aquarius, Gemini, Cancer, Libra, and Sagittarius are positive both vote intention and the turnout. And second, Aries is, as well as the Pisces, are mostly reflecting vote. Actually, Aries is really out of our expectation because Aries is very assertive with a high level of extroversion, but why they just show very low intention in voting? Okay, that's very weird. Third, Taurus and the Scorpio only exercise significant impact on voting intention. And last, Facebook does have influence on these 2 sun signs. Leo and Virgo are actually influenced by the Facebook on their possibility to vote. The detail, you can check the paper. Okay. And here, we find that the traditional competitors are actually count because men are really less inclined and more positive, more passive to vote than women. Okay, in Taiwan. Okay, the elderly tend to be more active to vote. Pen green has stronger vote intention, and pen blue stronger voted action. And the Taiwanese identity remains to be the crucial factor in motivating people into voting. And the second, offline mobilization could not be taken into effect. And Facebook indeed has its direct influence on popular voting propensity. It even vanished the party identification, the significance of party identification. And this is our limitation and the conclusion. Maybe we also need to finish it. Okay. We should note that this research, we use Pisces as the baseline in our logistic regression model because his Pisces is the most passive among the 12 sun signs. And the inconsistency between the hypothesis and the empirical results is not well inserted here. The findings of this study may only apply to netizens. The sun sign affiliated with certain personality traits quite influence on the possibility to vote, and the 4 patterns are uncovered just as mentioned earlier. The impact of Facebook should not be overlooked and deserve our future exploration. Then we submit the conclusion.
The paper hopefully serves as a piece of brick to a bridge in the future to link between our daily life interest and academic classroom in paper science. Thank you.
Thank you. That, now I would like to invite Professor Sun to write your comments. Thank you.
an ambitious paper, and it's brave, you know it, to take on a poorly understood and rarely operationalized variable. Sun signs are not what political scientists normally talk about, and so it's risky research, and I know something about risky research. You better be careful. Do you have tenure? Okay, so at a certain level, it begs the question, you know, does a factor need to be real to have an impact? You know, and economists have always talked about behavior in terms of the as-if factor, yeah? So we know that actors behave as if a factor is real, even when it's only imagined or is a spurious connection to objective reality. We also know that political participation and propensity to vote, that's difficult to say with jet lag, are core concerns of political science. So you're both in very safe territory and very dangerous territory at the same time, and that's good. It's a good thing to do. So with this paper, these core elements of democracy can be seen through this very new lens, and a very old lens, yeah? The wise mother. And the authors ask, is astrology cogent enough to explain political behavior? And I think that's the right question to ask, but I fear that the answer is no. It's not cogent at all, but maybe you can help me to think it is over time. So for example, I'm a little bit concerned about the presumption of coherence of personality traits within a sign. Yeah? I think even within a sign, personality traits can be quite diverse and have tremendous variation. And the literature that you cite shows incomplete, ambiguous, and conflicting results. And so this is something that should set off a red flag. Yeah, that previous research does not give a solid footing to start with. And I would also say that if the research shows that personality traits are related to a zodiac sign in some ways, but not in others, with some signs, but not with others, in some ways, this tends to confound the central claim. Yeah, as a scientist, you may want to be careful when you're so all over the map with these kinds of results in previous research. And you know, we know that even the classical factors, social economic status, other ways in which people have explained political participation, the P's, I'm having trouble with the P's, I think it's the jet lag. Other ways we explain political participation also have their limits, and this is not exempt from that. So every Taiwanese voter is subject to many influences, and disentangling the classic influences from these novel new ones will be a very difficult task. It's a huge challenge. And when you go into the domain of the big five, and especially factors like neuroticism, I personally feel a little bit uncomfortable, maybe a little bit neurotic myself. So I again would caution about doing that. It's difficult to say that the past research is inconclusive and then to build something new on top of it that is so dependent on a shaky foundation. I think the foundation needs to be more solid to build on top. So maybe some caution is in order with the big five. Table 2 does precisely this, what I'm saying we need to be careful with, and as a reader I have some concerns about the sweeping and general nature of the claims in Table 2. They're somewhat problematic. And in terms of the data, just as a social scientist in a journal, former journal editor, you admit to the fact that you have a classic self-selection skewing. Yeah? These people chose to be on the I voter. They're not a representative sample of anything. The I voters are not generic voters. They're also voters who chose to be in your platform and voters who chose to respond to the surveys. Those are self-selection attributes. They've been shown to be more informed and strongly aligned with political parties. That makes them also a unique sample. And this is an important limitation, but it's also suggestive of where you can go to improve the research if you want to take it to the next level. So if we identify some clear limits, then you also see a pathway to the next steps. And I'll return to this point, but I think there is a corrective measure or two that you can take to stick with this research and to make it stronger. You do a great job of thoroughly acknowledging the limits of the study and the claims and the focus of the research. So with respect to your findings, I was only modestly persuaded. In fact, I think that's maybe generous, but maybe this reflects my Piscean disposition. So as a Pisces, I find it hard to understand the selection of Pisces for a baseline measure. I'm just saying I have a hard time with that. It's also a very small sample to subject to a 12-level astrological stratification, because once you do that, you have very small numbers. And I'm not a statistician, but some of my best friends are statisticians, and I think your numbers are a little small to be getting statistically significant findings. There are so many traditional propensity to vote factors on the table, including ethnicity and Taiwanese identity, that the reader feels the influence of the zodiac sign may amount to a very small part of a very complex stew of factors. The same can be said of the Facebook effect, something I care greatly about. I build software for archiving and studying Facebook. I think Facebook is an important political medium. It's indicative of the age. But I found it very difficult to evaluate what exactly you were doing with Facebook. And I'd like to see you do more, maybe focus on Facebook and voting as one option for narrowing your focus. Now, when noting some signs of support for some astrological signs support some findings where others do not, the sum total effect is a bit of a muddle, right? The reader comes away feeling like, well, sometimes this works, sometimes it doesn't, but that's not really the way we look for findings in social science. We look for things that we fail to falsify across the board. And the authors are quite candid about these limits, and the question is how or whether to keep going with this research at this point. And the focus is on netizens and the iVoter domain, but maybe what you should be doing is to test some of the most interesting things you found in this study on the general public and not on the iVoter. Or to bring more people into the iVoter to get the numbers out. Yeah? By increasing the size of the sample and narrowing the focus, you may find greater consistency of results. And I will send you these remarks, so you don't have to write them. As the authors note, and by the way, it's a very well-written paper, this is the first brick in a bridge to a new approach on voter propensity. I commend them on a thorough, skillful, and daring attempt at building this bridge.